Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. If you're still watching the football, I have no idea why, but this is how I feel about it. All those years of listening to United fans give us a hard time. We're going to have a good time too. It's Monday Madness. Let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. No matter where in the world you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As you know, back for more is one of our show favorites, and the manager perspective coming right up. Mr. Paul Buckle, welcome back to Squad Central. Bosh.
Hi, Soph. Thanks for having me again.
So, Paul, I set the show time today deliberately because I wanted to see a little bit of Manchester United. And, you know, we've got a massive game coming up this weekend. And my goodness, Rebecca must be absolutely delighted right now with what's going on. I left it at 4-0. Is it still 4-0?
I think it is, yeah. I just heard her screams like, oh, the phone, you know what it's like? We've got the foot mob and it gives you the notification, right? So chatting about this show and then ding, let's go. Straight in there, screaming, shouting, and then hoping that her father's there. Yeah, so she goes, I can leave the game now. Actually, I can just go on upstairs, leave the game now. It's not sure how many times you can say that as a Palace fan against United, but
I know, right?
Good time to play United, so be a good time.
So good, so good. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Good evening, squaddies. Welcome to everyone in the house who's joined us. Yes, Dean, exactly. Trevor's here. Demsek is here. Mark is here. Little Soph is here. I know our Chief Like Officer, Tammy Lord, is here. Carlos is here. Carol's here. The whole fam family's here. Priska's here. Everyone's here. Thank you so much for joining, you guys. We're going to have a little bit of a generic chat tonight. So remember, get your questions in as well, and I'll mark them, and we'll ask Paul towards the end of the show. Just quickly in summary, Paul, by the way, I thought, you know, being good company here, Kai Havertz, Declan Rice, the player of the month, the player of the match at the weekend. You know, Bournemouth, pretty good. Apparently, if the game started in December, Bournemouth would be around 5th now. A brilliant result. A quick summary from you on that match. It seemed formulaic, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think City would have looked at that and thought, you know, Arsenal could slip up. This will be the one where they maybe can't hold on mentally. And the game, you know, there were some nervy moments in the game. You were thinking the same as me. Maybe, you know, they're going to concede, and they didn't. They showed that resilience in an important part in the second half, the start of the second half. So yeah, they showed all the qualities again that you're going to need in these last few games as they get tighter and tighter and the stakes get higher and higher. But it was in the end, a 3-0 win is a great win. And there probably wasn't many players on the field that were below sort of a 7.5, 8. And that's what you need right now.
Yeah, it was a very mature, and we're continuing to kind of have these mature professional performances. And that was definitely one of them against a very, very good Cherries side. I was a little bit worried about Solanke. We were exchanging messages real quick. Do you still feel that the disallowed goal was definitely a foul on David Raya and Saliba wasn't pulling the shirt of the Bournemouth player?
I do. I text you immediately. Again, we spoke before about body language of players, and I had a little dig at the referees because they don't seem to be able to see that. The second Solanke does this, it's a free kick. He shouldn't have done that. That was a poor move by Solanke. I think that type of thing now the VAR have got to look at. The second, because you only need a bump, especially when it's that close to goal. Raya's going to punch it. Solanke, you know, smart. A few years ago, or even a year ago, they got away with that. You know, just a slight nudge. I saw it. You know, I've seen that a million times. I've seen players get away with that a million times. But again, the arms out shows you straight away that he's impeded Raya. And I think Raya would have got more on the ball had he not done that. So yeah, I think it was definitely a free kick. And you know, I think the Arsenal fans would have had something to say if he'd allowed that.
Listen, while we're on the subject and with my intro, I can't help it. I really just can't. I don't even care. They are so... Credit to Crystal Palace, though, the resurgence under the new manager. They've got 2 or 3 really super exciting players who've been consistently good for them, Paul, over the season. Manchester United are in the mud. And as an Arsenal fan, I have no empathy for them whatsoever. We have been their dartboard for years and years and years. And I don't want to hear injuries. I don't want to hear all this, you know, all these excuses. Every single team goes through injuries. I don't want to get too large and I don't want to take the piss too much, but I'm going to enjoy this moment because they have been absolutely humiliated by Crystal Palace this evening. I was going to ask you this question at the end of the show because I was thinking to myself, of all the teams that are suffering, all the rivals that are struggling, which team will rise next season? And I was thinking to myself, if they remove Ten Hag and they get like a Thomas Tuchel or somebody like that, who's a motivator, just much more kind of experienced in these moments. And then I say to myself, well, he's got them then to how many finals? You know, they've then another opportunity to win a trophy. But my goodness, are you shocked by just how bad they have become?
I am. I didn't actually think it could get a lot worse than it's been. So I don't think Ten Hag is the fit. I've watched them. I've watched their style of play. I've watched him on the sideline. I think it's a terrible fit. I really do. I think they're reflective of him. I never quite know what he's thinking. I never in his interviews can get a gauger on whether he's passionate, not passionate. They're always late in the press. You never see them. And I think the players, I'm not just blaming the manager because it's a collective and United have been in trouble for a long time. I bet Mourinho's sitting there saying, I told you so. Because I think he knew there was a core, you know, a real problem at the core of the club. I think the only hope for the United now is not just a change, you know, in the manager, is a change upstairs too. You know, if they get Dan Ashworth out, Jason Wilcox has gone in as recruitment. Okay. I think then they've got a chance because you've got to find the right manager at United. And I think it just needs to be someone with a lot more passion. I don't know Ten Hag, but, you know, I just don't see it. So if I don't see it and I don't see the reaction, you know, reflective of that type of performance, you'll see it in Roy Keane or Gary Neville when they're, you know, presenting or commentating. It's just a million miles away from what they should be, and it's getting worse.
Do you think we have anything to concern ourselves over? Because Old Trafford, even though we've won the league there twice, it's definitely been a stadium where we've had some trouble, Paul. And I think I was telling you last week, I was at the game a season ago where we controlled possession. We had so many chances and we ended up losing the game 3-1. I would usually say beware the wounded animal, but I'm wondering if the animal has just kind of, you know, there's no way back. I don't want to say like put it down, but I mean, it feels that way. But again, you just don't know in football, just like we don't know if Fulham or West Ham or Tottenham can get a result against Manchester City. Don't get too cocky is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're all going to be tight affairs. I mean, the one thing you want some type of dynamic in the game where maybe the team that's fancied to get beaten wants to show up. And normally the wounded animal United would be very dangerous. But I don't think it has that fight back anymore. So if I don't see it, I think it's disjointed. I think it's a team of individuals. You can't even say there's a unit on the field that's working. They've had their troubles right from the start of the season. And I just, you know, yes, years ago, United being beaten, you know, everybody would be backing them to win that next game because Ferguson would have put a rocket up them there would have been changes. They would have meant something. And they'd have done everything humanly possible to get back on track. I think they've lost that. I think they've lost that inner spirit, that identity. And I think the thing for Arsenal is to focus on themselves, keep doing what they've been doing, driving forward, backline keeping it tight again. And I don't see them having any problems.
All right. So when I was messaging Paul, I didn't want to dig too much into the Bournemouth game because, you know, it is what it is. And also you get so up after that result, and then Manchester City go and smash Wolves 5-1. And, you know, it feels like the hope is gone again. However, they still have 3 games to play. They're a relentless machine, but so are we right now. So I wanted to kind of have more of a kind of a bird's eye view conversation this evening about a few different things. One of them being the manager, because sometimes you ask yourself, you know, he's looking to improve the team, and I want you to have your manager head on here, but also like the executive side of what you're doing, working with the clubs you are right now, in the sense that how do Arsenal improve and evolve? Well, how does Mikel Arteta improve and evolve first? And because he's asking his team to do that, and then he's also looking for those inches that are going to maybe help us catch up to City. Firstly, I want you to look at him as a manager, and mostly this season he's made great decisions. I feel like in that Villa game where he moved Havertz out of the 9 role, I'm not saying it cost us, but I was like, why? You know, why do that at this point in the season? And we briefly touched on that a couple of weeks ago. But when you look at Mikel Arteta and his journey so far, new contract looming, Tom Canton was saying on Harry's show this morning that this next contract has to come with the caveat of winning a trophy. The first contract was to rebuild, reset, get Arsenal back being competitive. And this next contract is to, you know, include winning stuff. What does he do to improve and evolve himself first as a manager, Paul?
Oh, great question. I don't think there's a lot more he can do. If I'm honest, I mean, you have to look at the opponent in front of you right now, which is Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, and the length of time he's been at the club. So if you can't, judging Mikel at the moment, be very, very harsh to say that he's failing. He's not. I feel like Arsenal are going in the right direction. The biggest mistake will be to come off course and not continue the building process. Because I feel, like I said before, if they continue this and he adds better players, because I think, you know, Arsenal need to do that. And I think he'll push for that, and he should, because they're really, really close. You know, look at the impact that Rice has made. I mean, we can talk about that. Massive impact. It's 100 million. That's what it's going to cost. And it's who's out there, but it would be recruitment, improving yourself as a manager is it's not always on the field. So it's about, you know, managing up top, okay, and the powers above, and making them believe in what you're trying to achieve. So I think that's maybe the first thing he can look at is the recruitment of the team. But again, City have just been incredible. And I think if Arsenal can win this year, go down in history, because this is such a tough title to win, and to take it away from City, you mustn't underestimate that. I don't think Mikel has messed around with the team so much. I think the team is so good in so many places now. It is about adding 1, 2 or 3 players to the squad. I think that can be the way he can improve as a head coach.
So one of the things I was talking about on Harry's show this morning, Paul, was how I think winning and building a winning culture has to start somewhere. This isn't the same team as when he won the FA Cup. And many Arsenal fans, and I am one that thinks this, is that he inherited Emery's team. Now, he still had to win the FA Cup and put, you know, a string of wins together, get to the final, beat Liverpool, beat City along the way. And that was really the beginning. But those players, barring Saka and, you know, Emile Smith-Rowe, who doesn't really get to start now Now, this is a totally different side. Now, some of these players may have won, previously to coming to the Arsenal. Of course, we know Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko and Jorginho's history and Havertz, etc. But they haven't won together. They haven't won as a collective. And I just wonder if next season Mikel Arteta should take the domestic trophies a little bit more seriously. It might be harsh of me to say he hasn't taken them seriously, but from the approach and from what we've seen as Arsenal fans, it doesn't appear that he's maybe not even respected them much because he's been going for the jugular. I think if this team was in the FA Cup final now, if we'd have got to the League Cup final, the taste of winning, the taste of almost winning, I'm not saying it's greater than the Champions League quarter final, but it felt like we were trying to fly before we were even hovering. What's your take on the domestic approach, trying to build a winning culture through the FA Cup or the League Cup and taking it a little bit more seriously next season?
I think it's a brilliant question, and it's a dilemma for a head coach at this level now, what to do. I mean, again, you always have to look at the best, Soph, if you want to improve. And I think Guardiola's been an expert at that, an expert at a lot of things. But every time you see his teams go out in the cup competitions, they're motivated. And I think that's cultural, that every single game matters. And I'm an advocate of that as a head coach. If I went back in tomorrow and when I was coaching, I wanted to win every game. I wanted, even when the team knows that you're maybe playing players that wouldn't be playing, in the league game, you've got to find a different dynamic as a head coach to motivate them. This is about motivating players and making them know the worth of culture and what can come from that, because you want all the players ready as well. Like when players play in the FA Cup or the League Cup, of course, there's an opportunity for them to shine. There's an opportunity for them, to impress the manager, but also be ready. Be ready when you're called upon. And I think that the City players are ready. When Guardiola makes changes to the team in the Premier League, they look ready. And I think he's always ready. And I think culturally that is something that Arsenal could get, where it's just about winning everything. We've seen Man United do it over the years. We've seen City, and it is infectious. Once you get that in the squad and in the building, whether it's academy players or your Haalands, with that winning culture, I think that can really help you.
I totally agree with you. And in that, it seems like from day one, Pep's taken all of the cup seriously. He has the depth, and the squaddies are all kind of saying to me, if we had more of that depth, then we would have gone for it more. I feel like this season we've had the depth, and our injuries maybe occurred earlier in the season where the cup runs were over. But I think our bench, if you look at our bench over the weekend, you've got Trossard now, you've got Jesus on the bench, Zinchenko can't start. There are players, you've got Thomas Partey who's come back from injury, but you've got, Tomiyasu who was injured. There's all of these components that go into it. But then the trust factor, and Mohammed from Palestine here in the chat tonight was just saying that he doesn't trust the bench enough. And a lot of our listeners have said that over the season. At some point, you have to trust these players, which is why I think we were knackered in the game against Bayern Munich, knackered in the game against Aston Villa. I think Tom had that right when we were talking this morning. What is it about the trust factor? Because in the cups especially, Wenger just used to let everyone breathe, like try youth, play different players, give players the opportunity, different goalkeeper. I know a lot of teams do that. But until he trusts his bench and he matures beyond just wanting to squeeze everything, Paul, out of the same players, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a daily management of the players. So when they're coming in, and it must be a lot harder now for the managers because there's so many players. You're not just talking about 22 players. But my take on it was always, the 11 that are starting are fine. They're going to take care of themselves. I would always say to my assistants, it's the 11 now, 15 that are not starting that we have to get into, right? That we have to do the extra training with, that we have to put our arm around, We have to give them the reasons why they're not playing. We have to tell them they need to be ready. Okay. I think that can be exhausting, but it's a really big part of managing and winning. And again, Guardiola, I think, has that relationship with his players. And I think you need to build that. And even when they let you down, you've got them for the season, right? And it's your job then to improve them along with all your staff. And there's loads of staff now at these clubs to get them players ready, okay, mentally and physically. Get them ready and make sure when they're not involved that of course, they're disappointed. Every player in the country, in the world, when they don't play, is disappointed, or they should be, is feeling a part of it. And I think that is something they can work on. It's very important.
Yeah. And well, let's see. I mean, we're also at that point where, and I want to really pick your manager brain here, because I've been saying for a long time that there's going to come a time where we're going to lose players that we really love or really like. And it's been a long time for Arsenal in that regard. When you look at Mikel's record and we talk about improvements, you look at the matches, you look at the win percentage, where he finished in his first, second, third, fourth, and now the fifth season. Of course, that first season was a season. It's undeniable that we've improved, that we've become more competitive, and we've gotten better and better. And there was a player that came in at a time, Gabriel Jesus, who really helped elevate our culture and how we played on the pitch. He really solidified the identity of what a Mikel Arteta team is going to look like. He was almost his general on the pitch. How to be off the ball, the energy and the effort you put in off the ball. I felt like Martinelli and Saka improved greatly when he came into the team, and injuries have unfortunately stifled Gabriel Jesus over the last couple of seasons. I still think that he has a massive part to play. There are rumors about Jesus and Saudi Arabia. Same thing with Thomas Partey, and we'll get to him. What's your take on Jesus and how he plays? He's admitted that he's not a prolific goal scorer. He was brought in as a number 9. I just don't think he's that kind of player. He wasn't that player at Manchester City. I've embraced all the other characteristics about him, Paul. Also, how do you replace a player like that, and how much is it going to cost you? Do you stick or sell on Gabriel Jesus?
I would stick. I think you're only as good as your bench when you're looking at your bench, and that's during the game and that's during a season, right? You look at what you've got at your disposal. The other players look at it, Soph, as well. So complacency can creep in if there's not that competition for places. I think Jesus brings, he's a winner. He brings a wealth of experience in how to win, and there's lots of different ways to win. Just that work ethic. I mean, look again, I know I was speaking about Guardiola a lot, but look what he did with Grealish. He just sat him until he was ready to work. Okay? So, that being at the forefront, you're seeing a more dogmatic Arsenal team individually and collectively a lot of the times, when you need to dig in. I would keep him. I think, I don't know what he's like in the dressing room. I think that comes into it as well. If someone's good in the dressing room, that can be worth a lot too with the players. When you're talking with younger players, you don't know the effect that someone like Jesus is having on a Saka or on younger players. So if you could imagine, if you can think that he's still got the fight in him, okay, to go and compete for his place, he'd be a great, squad player. I mean, that's evolving. I mean, that's going in the right direction. And it sends a message to him. If you say to him, "Oh, we want to keep you, we're bringing in another striker or 2," okay? Strikers, it's always great to have a lot of strikers, I think. I think you can't go wrong. It's always good to have that competition. And then you can sometimes fall upon different dynamics, Soph, that you didn't actually realise were going to be there when you pick an individual striker. You bring him in and all of a sudden there's a chemistry worked out off the field, and then it goes onto the field, or, whichever way round. I've had that before, where all of a sudden, someone's got injured and you put these 2 together or these 3 together, and they're like, right, we're going to keep these other 2 or 3 out. So you have like a mini competition going on with the strikers. So I would keep him. I would definitely keep him, and I would try and add up top.
So something else that I mentioned this morning that one of the listeners is reminding me of was I raised the point of we've talked all season about having backup for Saka. And we've created this competition between Martinelli and Trossard. And of course, Jesus has played on that left side too. But to have the same type of quality, one of the things that we've lacked, Paul, is when a player goes out, what's the quality replacement? What level does he? He's never going to reach 100% at Saka, but if he's 75% and he can give you X amount over a season, I think that's a good thing. And I raised the question of we kind of have a replacement for Saka, God forbid, if he were to get injured. Do you think that's a good or bad idea? Do you think with your is that something a player like Jesus do you think could buy into, knowing that at Manchester City he was also having to wait his opportunity and wait his chance?
Yeah, I think first of all you want to create a culture and a mentality that the best players play. You know, the ones that are in form, they play. So if you come back for pre-season and you've got, you know, 6 players up top or 8 players up top, and you're picking 3 from them, and they all know that they are top players, okay, they start to push each other. They'll push each other. They'll do your job for you. So I think it's a brilliant thing it'll be a brilliant thing for Mikel to have at his disposal. You know, thinking about, okay, here's my ideal 11. There's Jesus there. Okay, there's Martinelli coming on. But actually, to have it all at your disposal, you never know how it's all going to pan out. But having the players there, creating the culture that he's creating, the continuity he's creating, can be very, very powerful. And I think that, I think then you can start, and there's meeting Karim now, but here you can start saying which games in the big games, which player starts the game and which game player finishes the game. So if it's a really tight game, there'll be a certain type of player that will play until it opens up maybe in the 60th, 70th minute, and then another player comes on. So horses for courses can come into it when you have a great squad at your disposal.
Interesting. I agree with that. And he's talked about having finishers, hasn't he? That's what they call those buzzwords these days, finishers. Here's a player that has been kind of polarizing, and I think for many different reasons, and also hasn't been available to Arsenal as much as they would have liked. But we're certainly seeing the quality of Thomas Partey as he's returned from injury and the value that he has brought to the midfield, partnering with Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. He looks in great shape. It's his presence, his quality, his physicality, his experience. Thanks to Chemo FC for this image of Thomas Partey as well. This was his heat map against Bournemouth at the weekend, Paul. And he only had 3 unsuccessful passes. 93% accuracy. There's no doubt that he has helped Arsenal in these last few matches have much more control in midfield. He does have a year left. I asked you last week, and with every single week that passes, it becomes even more of a question mark regarding Thomas Partey. 250,000 a week. It's a lot of money for a player that really isn't available for most of the season. When he does play and you see him play the way he has, you think to yourself, where are you going to go in the marketplace and find this quality for the money you know that quality is going to cost you? Thomas Partey, what are you thinking? Stick or sell? What would you do, and what do you think the club are thinking about doing?
Well, I would stick for sure. I mean, if you win it, Soph, and they said they were getting rid of Partey, there'd be a bit of a discussion there, I would have thought. So you're looking at something now where the season's not finished, and it's going to come down to real details. And this is where making them crucial decisions on who stays and who goes are really, really important. So I think he should stay. I think that, again, building the squad, he's showing his best football now. He's showing that you know, maybe upstairs they're looking saying, is he value for money? I don't think really as a manager at that level that can come into your mind really. He's now showing that he's a top Premier League player, and he's also showing that he can allow Rice to go and do other things. You know, a lot of people have spoken about Rice moving forward. He's showing it now. He's showing his timing of runs. He's showing his quality finishing. His touch. Rice's touch with the outside of the boot to set up, was it the second or the third goal? Was class. I mean, that was like someone that's played in an 8th
Trossard's
position.
goal. Trossard's goal.
Right?
Yeah.
The weight, he was off balance, facing the other way, plays with the outside of the boot. I think someone like Partey is allowing that. Just like I was alluding to when you bring in some strikers. You're bringing them in because they do this, this and this, but it's what they allow the other players to do, which is always interesting for me as a head coach. So I think that Partey now, whether you looked at it as a double pivot or you're looking at it now as him playing a single pivot and Declan Rice going on one, I think, again, it gives options. I wouldn't be, unless Mikel's got a completely different understanding of what we're all seeing, there's no way I'd be letting Partey go now because, you know, what about if Rice gets an injury or needs a rest and vice versa? So I certainly would be sticking, and I would be looking at the levels he's bringing now to that midfield and the stability he's giving along with Rice in front of the two centre-backs who have been fantastic.
Yeah, and it's funny because Arteta goes through these phases. It's like, you know, you try a really awesome sandwich and you want to eat that sandwich every day. And then, like, you know, the sandwich disappoints in the end, has a weird taste, and then you just move on to something else. And I feel like Mikel's like that. I mean, you can explore grabbing every single little morsel you can from that sandwich to feed a victory. And it, you know, Jorginho is doing so well. Granted, in games with pace, he struggles, but we can't argue that he hasn't been great when he's come in this season and helped us control the tempo of certain games. It's like he's eaten Zinchenko's sandwich, and I don't think there's any coming back from that. And he tends to do that. And sometimes a player can actually have a good game and he'll bench them. Does that less so this season? With Thomas Partey now, Thomas Partey fell out of favour, I think, because, you know, he also couldn't rely on him because he's too injured. But now you see him coming back, he's like firmly like, oh my God, where's this guy been all season? We could have really used him. What is that? Is that to keep players on their toes, Paul? Do you think he does that? Like, or do you feel like that's kind of mismanagement?
You give me my answer there, Sophie. I think he's a perfectionist, Mikel. We've touched on it before, right? He probably wants the perfect game, right? He's probably looking for this, and I would imagine there's quite a few things that would annoy him as a manager. I bet he's very hard to please. And I tell you, if I had, God, I don't know how many hundreds of players I've had, you know, in my managerial career, but I bet they'd all have an opinion on me. Sometimes, you know, probably couldn't work out why I made decisions, why I didn't like something. And I think you get a feel as a manager. You can see someone in training, you don't like it. You know, managers, I say us managers, can be strange at times, can be really strange. And it's not until players then become managers themselves that they realise, you know, how much there is going on in your mind as a manager. But I do think that he's finding himself. I've said this on a few of the shows that he's a young manager. He's finding himself. We're seeing improvements now. We're seeing things settle down now. So maybe Mikel's having a look at himself and saying, actually, you know what? Can't always be perfect. But there is an element as well where I would imagine he'll test the player to see if he's got enough to come back. You know, didn't Rice come off early in the season? So wasn't quite at it, and he didn't.
I mean, the West Ham game is probably his worst game of the season, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But it was Gabriel Magalhaes at the start of the season where people were scratching their heads and they're like, why isn't he picking him? Why is he playing? He was playing Thomas Partey at right back and shifting. And Gabriel, you know, who's been immense since then, though. I mean, he's had a better season, in my opinion, than William Saliba, who was absolute mustard against Bournemouth at the weekend. But yeah, I think that's what maybe you might be thinking of. But Declan Rice has been mostly epic for the season.
I think he's tested. I think Mikel again. I don't know him personally, of course, but just looking at him and we're discussing it, there's going to be method in his madness, and he just probably wants to see, everything from the player, and to prove him wrong, to come back and prove him wrong, and maybe he's there now. Maybe he's got enough players now doing the things that he wants. That's going to satisfy him. But sometimes you can. Look, I've done it. You can leave players out that are highly annoying to you for whatever reason, and you put someone else in. Well, you tick that box, but what's the trade-off? So sometimes you got to know what the trade-offs are, and you got to sometimes be prepared to let a lot of things go. And as a lot of older managers have told me before, Paul, you got to learn to play the game, keep the play. I'm just was a bit too honest for that, and I think Arteta is too, actually, and I think that will serve him. So I think that will serve him well long term.
Yeah. So is it true then that sometimes you won't pick someone because they just annoy the out of you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I look back, reflect a little bit when we talk on this show, and players must sometimes be like, oh my God, like what have I got to do to please him? And maybe I didn't convey that well enough at times. But yeah, I don't know. I think when you're looking for excellence and you're looking for a team to reflect you, the biggest thing for me was effort. No excuses, that type of thing. But sometimes the players are not quite there, and you've got to give them a little bit more space. I think I'd be hopefully a bit better if I went back into it now, a bit more understanding. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with how Mikel is. Mm-hmm. And I think given the time, that will become very forceful, because that will be culture. And I think when players come in, Rice and all the rest of the chaps will be saying, he doesn't like this, he doesn't like this, he doesn't like this, he absolutely doesn't like this, right? And so that's when you really can build culture.
Oh, very cool. A quick one for you, because I don't like how he became the scapegoat, Zinchenko, because again, another player that helped elevate our culture, was brilliant in his first season, clearly hasn't been at his best. Let's not deny as well that the guy's had a lot going on in his life. And sometimes I think we think that, footballers are bionic men, and they're just not. And I won't have a bad word said about him, because for so long he was a favourite, whether we were celebrating goals on the pitch, the way that he was able to play that inverted role with such smoothness, really opened up spaces. But then, of course, since the mistake at Liverpool last season, it feels like he's been the dartboard. I do feel like there's value. There seems to be interest from Newcastle. Paul, are you sticking or selling Zinchenko?
I'm sticking today. I'm absolutely. I'm really trying to look at it when I was doing squads myself, right? And sometimes again, when a player thinks he's going to be on the way out, there is some big strength in keeping him and adding and building around them, and he'll come back. He's got the quality to come back. I think Mikel would understand that. I think it's just he's looking for him to show different qualities right now, fight a bit more, fight for his place. I don't know, but I'd rather have him in my squad than out of my squad, because he's shown enough in an Arsenal shirt to prove to me that he can start in the Premier League.
Yeah, there's some of the squaddies that think he's done, some that, I guess passion won't cut it, but at the same time, you're talking about players that work in the midfield. Stop with the Kieran Tierney thing. I'm not having it. That dude was less fit than Zinchenko. Someone's going to put up the stats and prove me wrong now. But he's not the player that Mikel wants. And we've moved on from that. Talk about elevate season after season. Kieran Tierney comes in. There was a time where Arsenal fans wanted him to be captain, Paul. Then Zinchenko comes in, elevates the game. Then Tomiyasu can play left back, right back, takes it to another level. Then Jurriën Timber comes in, who was going to be the next thing since sliced bread, gets injured, but we know of his quality. So that shows you kind of what I'm talking about, doesn't it? In terms of just when you think a player's great, we need to crank it up a notch in order to get better, but also to match Manchester City.
Absolutely. Now you're looking at the dilemmas that Mikel's got. I mean, this is why we love the game, Soph. We really do, because the opinions, and we make opinions pretty quickly now on players. We do. I mean, you're stuck with Havertz. and you've been proven right. I couldn't see that at one stage. You know, maybe I'd have made a terrible mistake and stuck him on the bench. But I think as well, like with these decisions, having your assistants around you and making these right calls and being really honest with you is really important. But yeah, I think you can always look at it later on. So if you don't have to make all them decisions at the end of the season, you know, and build it. If you do want to go for more cups and you do want more competition and you do want to be able to make them changes when you need to, you've got to have a better squad. And I think that is the one thing that you've seen from Guardiola and City is that he's a great squad, and every year they've improved it massively.
So real quick, because quite a few of the squaddies I'll encapsulate it. Yeah, it's difficult to find, but a lot of you have been saying he's more of a midfield player, like Wesbird here. Do you really think would you keep him in the midfield? If we're talking about Partey, you know, injuries, etc. Is Zinchenko, can he play that position, Paul, like in an entire 90-minute game?
Yeah, I mean, when he played fullback, right, he's talking about him being inverted. Sophie in there, going in there. Yeah, absolutely. I think now the modern day fullback can go right inside or right high up, you know, depending on what system you're playing. Again, gives you flexibility. But absolutely. And if you're seeing a game out, if you're looking to see a game out, which you have to do at times, I know that might not be in Mikel's mentality to go and see it out in terms of not allowing another goal, right? Go and get the next goal, can be of great value for a season. So I can see him playing in there. I can see giving more options, you know, at the start of a game, you know, and during a game.
Yeah, and Demsek and Julian, I know that. I'm talking about the Premier League, right? International football is a lot different. Tommy plays a dual role for Japan, or different role as well. But I'm talking about the Premier League, like relying on him to play in the midfield position when we know that you get kicked about a lot, and it's totally different type of football. But yeah, I hear you. Okay, a player that Paul, that has been very injury prone but has come in and scored a ridiculous amount of goals for his team is Alexander Isak. He's the new it thing for Arsenal fans, right? It was Gyökeres about 2 months ago, and this month it's Alexander Isak. About 3 months ago, it's like, no, 100 million, injury prone. When you look at his goal ratio versus the games that he's played, I think he's missed 26 games over the period of his career so far at Newcastle. He's still very young. I think, you know, there's a part of him that feels a little bit like Thierry Henry, the way he leans, the way he can take a ball, the way he finishes. 100 million, I think, is what the asking price will be. That's a lot of money. But when you were saying earlier, 100 million is what you got from Declan Rice and it took Arsenal here. Do you think that's the missing link to make this Arsenal team catch up to Manchester City? Could he be our version of Haaland?
I think I'm not sure it can be the version of Haaland. I think he's got
our version, not a duplicate of.
No, I see what you mean. I don't know if he's at that level of confidence yet to come to a huge club now and really the pressure be on him, right? I mean, Newcastle, with all due respect, Geordie fans, you know, not been challenging for the title. It's different. This is a different animal altogether. But he's absolutely should be on the shopping list, because he can score goals, and that's what Arsenal are going to need. You know, that's what Arsenal are lacking, is a striker up top that can and believes he can get double figures, expects himself to get double figures. Haaland expects himself to do that, and he doesn't care how he gets it. He doesn't care, and I think they need that type of mentality up top. When you look at the goals I couldn't believe the goals that Saka's got, actually, that's contributed massively this season. If you get that striker or two up top, it can make all the difference. And 100 million now, I mean, we used to say 100 million, you know, when Grealish went, and it's the going rate now. And I think to improve, that's what you're looking at Arsenal now. You've got to be looking at them numbers if you're going to improve, because the only way you're going to improve is to win it. If you don't win it, you're going to miss out by a whisker. So money shouldn't come into it for me. you should go after the very best you can get.
Okay, I'm going to get to because there's a couple of questions for you on this one. Where is it? Let me find it. But basically, they're asking about Ollie Watkins versus Alexander Isak. Watkins might be half the price, who I think fits in nice with our front line. He might be too much like for like. Isak gives you a little bit of something different. I think Isak can score wonder goals, short goals, 6 yard, 8 yard. Who would you think money wise as well? You're putting your executive hat on, Watkins or Isak?
Watkins by a country mile, because I know him. I think I shared this on the show before about. Did I share with you that I recommended him to Crystal Palace?
I think you did a few weeks ago.
And I'm proud of that one, because they at the time are looking for like a, I speak with Steve Parish and Brighty and that from time to time. They're looking for a development striker, and I said go and get Watkins, because one, I knew his history at Exeter, and I knew the personality, and I knew the drive the kid had, and trust Steve Perriman with my life. I know he's an ex-Tottenham player, guys, but I worked with Steve a long time, and some really good people at Exeter gave me a great insight into Ollie, and he's got everything. I mean, Watkins started on the left. He was played loads for his early days on the left-hand side, and then he was moved to the middle, and he showed. Really, I think he showed that he's a modern-day striker, so where he can drift to the left, a bit like Henry used to do, right? He can play down the middle, but he's a handful, and he is a natural finisher. I mean, his progression has been unreal. And if you can get him for half of the price of Isak, I'd go for both of them. I'd say let's get both of them in if you could, because he absolutely knows where the goal is. He's young. I don't know about the injuries of Isak, but that is a huge thing when you're signing a player, to know the history, okay? And also what Mikel's going to want physically from the strikers against the ball comes into it as well. And I think Watkins ticks a lot of boxes, and he scores a range of different goals. So I think he would be a great signing for Arsenal.
Well, Jonathan and quite a few others are asking what would happen to Havertz, and so is our chief like officer. Don't forget to hit the like button. It just takes a few seconds, you guys, and it helps the channel. It does mean rotating, but this is the Manchester City model, isn't it, Paul? We can't just rely. I think Havertz will score 20 plus next season. I just feel like he's getting comfortable at the Arsenal. And if we were playing for 2 more seasons, I think he's durable enough and his stamina is good enough, and he would just continue scoring goals game after game after game. That's how I feel about Havertz's confidence right now. But when we maybe want to do a little bit more in the domestic trophies, when we're back in the Champions League, when we're going to fight the beast that is Manchester City again, we just can't rely on Havertz. City lose Haaland, Alvarez, a World Cup winner, comes in. Do you agree or disagree with me on that one?
I 100% agree. Think about it if you're a fullback, Soph, and you've just gone up against Saka, all right? Or, and you're bringing on Martinelli or whatever side it is. You get what I'm saying, right? You take off Watkins and you bring on Havertz, okay? Or you bring Ollie Watkins on. If you're a centre-back or a fullback, oh, my God, I've just had to deal with that for 60 minutes, and now I've got Watkins in this great culture at Arsenal where they're ready, okay? And they're fighting for something. They're fighting for a league title, okay? And something they want to win and continue to win. That's a real problem for the opposition because it's unrelenting. And I think again, with the high press and the energy against the ball, you need that up top. I think the more we talk about it, the more it's going to make sense. Absolutely. Competition for places, opposition thinking, oh my God, look at their bench. Opposition also thinking we're trying to plan, right, for what we're up against, and you don't know what he's going to play because he could play any three of the 6.
Very interesting. I totally agree. And yeah, a lot of positive comments coming through for Kai Havertz as well. And, I asked you over the weekend on a text if Declan Rice was the signing of the season. And, I think that he definitely is. But I think Kai Havertz, after all of the adversity he's had to face, and when you look at the season comparison, Premier League starts per game, with Havertz as the number 9 and in other games, it's evident to see the improvements that he's made. But you know, Declan Rice again shines, was the player of the match. You could argue that Havertz could have been the player of the match at the weekend against Bournemouth. He just seems to go from strength to strength. The money that we spent, Arsenal fans joke that we stole him at half price, but the value when you, and the reason why I wanted to ask you this was the pain in David Moyes' face and voice in his post-match press conference, Paul, at the weekend when they asked him, what's the difference? And he's literally didn't even stutter and said Declan Rice. What a player. What value. Yeah. Is he the signing of the season?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Rebecca said to me 100% he's a sign of the season. I think he brings everything. And what Moyes would know, actually, I forgot the impact that must have had on West Ham, him leaving. The guy's a winner. The guy is inspirational. You know, he's upbeat. I think he's real. You know, he said about Manchester City being a machine, didn't he? You know, I thought that was great vulnerability, what he was saying. That weren't mind games. But I think he's saying that, thinking Arsenal can be a machine. I think this is a guy that's not only driving Arsenal, he's driving England on. He's a brilliant signing. I mean, that's going to seem like peanuts, Soph, now, 100 million. And the fact that you're mentioning, the fact that there's a discussion about player of the season is great for Arsenal, right? That's what you want. I mean, Saka, Havertz, Rice, Saliba, Gabriel, right? I mean, having had great seasons. And I think Rice, whenever you freeze when he was playing more defensive, which was not long ago, whenever you freeze frame that picture, he's always there. He was always there, Rice. And Partey started to do that too. I'm watching more closely now, and there must be a big trust in Partey to let Rice go because of the job he does in front of the back four. So, yeah, when you start to talk about a little bit of a competition between players, you know that, you know, you're having a great season. Okay.
I'll ask you this quick. I did have some quick fire ones for you, but I wanted to get a couple questions in before the hour. Where is it? Real quick, Martin Odegaard continues to just shine. Can he be the best in the world, Paul, do you think? I know we have to win to have him be considered as one of the best in the world, but could he become one of the best players in the world?
Yeah, no doubt. I actually, at the weekend and the last few games, I looked at him thinking, you're now going to be one of the best players in the world. You can see it. And you know, and you can also see Real Madrid coming back, can't you? To like look at him again with the pedigree that he's got. So the way he moves, it makes it look just so easy. Everything's so easy for him. You know, if you put him now on don't have a go at me, Arsenal fans, but if you put him in a Real Madrid shirt now, he wouldn't be out of place, would he?
No, he wouldn't. And he wouldn't lose his place either.
And would you be surprised if they made an offer for him? No. He's heading towards world class now. 100%.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we talk about stealing a player, 35 million. And I know Real Madrid fans, the Madridistas, are furious about it. And there's rumors that, you know, who wouldn't want him back? Barcelona, everyone would want Martin Odegaard. He starts for me in any team, in any land. Manchester City would love Odegaard. No doubt about it. Yeah. Okay, let me get to some quick questions for you. Let's see. Julian, would you swap Arteta for any manager in the world at the moment? Unless you're giving me Pep Guardiola, the answer's no.
Is that for me or you, that question?
It's for both of us.
Oh, my God. What a question that is, if you could swap Pep for Mikel tomorrow. You couldn't do it, Arsenal fans. Come on. If I was a businessman. Okay, fair enough. I would too then. I'm going to sit on the fence.
Okay. Who would you move on? Okay, we're going to do that next week. Okay. So there's a whole other discussion. Look, Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson, Lokonga at Luton. Are you bringing him back to the Arsenal? How about we twist Dean's question here to make it Lokonga specific? I think he's done a good job at Luton. He's still in a team that maybe is going to get relegated. I'm not sure. I'm totally sold. If he was recommended by having a brain fart, Burnley manager Vincent Kompany. So why didn't Vincent Company take him on loan then if he was that good? Would you take Lokonga back?
Are you asking me that one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that almost. So people like saying, take him. Well, why are you not taking him then? That's funny. No,
Exactly.
not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Oh my God, I would sell Martinelli, says Harvey. You're crazy. Just because he's had an average season, you're not selling Martinelli, are you, Paul? Come on.
I love Martinelli. I would pay to watch Martinelli play. I think he's exciting and I think he's direct. And again, you got to. I think you just got to look at it and say, okay, if you need to sell, I don't know what the finances are looking like. If you need to sell, of course, there's going to be a problem. Then who do you sell? That's a big decision. But no, not for me. Martinelli.
Do you know what? Do you know why this is coming up, Paul? Real quick, is because there's people think that Grealish is kind of out of favour or might be moved on, and Arsenal fans, I think, would take Grealish. Would you take Grealish at Arsenal? I mean, that's going to be a lot of money. We don't really need strengthening in that position. I think Tross.
I don't know. There's a reason why he's not been playing against us. It's a little bit like Jesus coming to Arsenal. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, since they won everything and Jack Grealish celebrated crazily last year, it seems to have had an adverse effect. I think just from the outside. I mean, I love him, and I was one of the first ones was raging when Gareth wouldn't play him. I mean, he'd get in my team anyway. Yeah, I really like Jack Grealish. I think he's a top player.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm not sure how much Pep liked the overly drinking and overly celebrating. Harvey, you don't have to type in caps. All right, we can see you. Okay, real quick, I got to ask you this because it's come up a lot on some shows I've been on. Liverpool won the League Cup. After seeing that game tonight, do you guys honestly think Manchester United are going to win the FA Cup? But fine, I'm going to ask Paul anyway. Man United win the FA Cup. Arsenal finish third. Liverpool finish second. That's not happening. So Arsenal finish second without winning anything. United win the FA Cup. Liverpool won the League Cup. Have they had more of a successful season than the Arsenal?
No, because there's a reason. Look, I don't like the way it's gone. I love the League Cup, the FA Cup. But the objectives for the huge sides like your Arsenals and your Man Cities is Premier League, Champions League. It doesn't matter which way round, I don't think, at the moment. It's pretty tight. That's what you're going after. And Arsenal are closer to any other team of taking it away from City. They're the closest now. And I think that's success. That's how I would gauge success this year. And then the key bit is how do we build?
Okay. Now, you and I have gone back and forth on this. You've made your stance very clear. By the way, guys, if you know who did this piece of art, I'd like to know so I could credit them because I loved it. David Raya wins the Golden Glove. A lot of Arsenal fans are saying that it's because he's got this incredible defence in front of him, the intimidation tunnel army, players like Saliba, who is just an absolute gem. I mean, I love him. He's one of my favourite players. Thanks to Ruth Beckhart for this piece, saving the penalty against Porto. Are you now sold, Mr. Buckle, on David Raya becoming a gunner and being the first choice keeper? Rumours that Szczesny might be coming back as the backup. I don't know how you feel about all that.
I'm still annoyed that you took him from Brentford, but no, that's surely got to be a Christmas card, isn't it? From White, Saliba, and Gabriel to send to him.
Yeah, this one.
You've got to send him a drink. Them three, because I can't remember David making great saves. Like you with me? I'm not. Look, a goalkeeper can put a lot of confidence in a back four, right? So without even touching the ball, they can put a lot of confidence in the back four. His distribution is first class, although against Tottenham, we'll forgive him that one. But yeah, I think that he's a great signing. It's been harsh on Ramsdale, but it's a great signing. But I do think the back line and Rice, Partey now has played a huge part in that Golden Glove. Yep.
Yeah. This picture, North Banksy, thank you. Brilliant stuff. I love it. It's fantastic. And I agree with you. I think that the defense, we've got the best defensive record. That helps the goalkeeper a lot. The save that stands out the most is the Manchester City save. That was pretty, I think that's probably his best save of the season. No doubt about it. Speaking of great pictures, before we go, I've decided that every time Paul's on, I'm going to share a picture of you.
Oh, oh my God, I feel really old now. So yeah, that's a petrified first year pro, I think.
What year? What year was this at Brentford?
With that haircut, the Gaza cut I was trying to copy. Maybe 89, 90. So if I don't know. Yeah,
Wow.
I like that kit though. I like the old crest, the castle.
I love this picture, and this is our goal, so you can get to know Paul a little bit better too. I found another one. I mean, you seem pretty happy here, Buckle.
No.
What's going on here? Shirts coming off?
God, don't show that to Torquay fans. That's the bit of rival Exeter where I spent a long time. Yeah, I scored. That was a pretty good goal, that one actually. Yeah, I cut him from the left and bent it in the top corner and looked pretty happy there. So, I don't know if I didn't take my top off, by the way. I absolutely didn't take my top off. Didn't have the abs.
Well, Chad thinks you haven't aged. Guna Rose says it's a fabulous pic. Wesbird says so young. What a handsome chap, says our chief like officer, Tammy. Steady on, Paul. I love this. And you know what? I do have one more. What's the big celebration here? Was that this is Brentford or is that the Dean Holdsworth?
That's Dean Holdsworth and Gary Blissett, two of my former colleagues, and that's a young Buckle where I got left out of the team, sulking like a baby on the bench at Griffin Park. We're 2-0 down against Swansea, and Holder said, go and get warmed up. I couldn't even look at Phil. I love Phil Holder. I love my former managers, but he said, go on and make a difference. What great words. I went on, I made both of the goals. We drew 2-2, I think, in that. Yeah, we drew 2-2 against the Swansea, and I was delighted. Yeah, two brilliant players there.
I love it. Brilliant pictures. Getting to know Paul a little bit better here on Highbury Squad. He's brought such value to the show. We love his insights as you can see, an ex-player and also manager as well. Just brilliant stuff. Scoring a goal, Paul. Is there a better feeling than that in the world, other than maybe having a baby?
No, I don't know. I think winning as a manager tops anything. So for me as a player, winning as a manager. And I watched, well done to Andy Woodman actually in Bromley yesterday going up in the conference final. God, I watched that. I didn't miss management then. But no, winning as a manager beats any goal. But yeah, scoring a goal, and I got a few in my time. Not as many as our Super Kev, and not on the level of Super Kev. But yeah, stuff. It's a great feeling. Thanks.
Yeah, love it. Brilliant stuff. And speaking of brilliant stuff, don't forget to go get your North Bank coin, HSNB10, 10% off. The pictures are coming in, just brilliant pictures from some of the listeners. If I take that away right there, just beautiful displays. Be sure to go get yours as well, guys. Help those guys out. This is Mark's collection of all the coins. Sent me this picture. Beautiful stuff. HSNB10. Go get your discount today for 10% off. That's all we've got time for today. Brilliant show from Paul Buckle. Again, don't forget that you can follow him, Paul Buckle_Paul on Instagram. You won't want to miss that, guys. Going to be back for more shows. We've got a women's show for sure coming up this week. We've got the chief football writer from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Jonathan Tannenwald, joining me for a little bit of that. We're going to have a Manchester United preview as well. And we've got From Highbury to the Grove, episode 6 with Perry Groves coming up. You won't want to miss that. Perry Groves, a big part of Arsenal history. And he will be joining Magic Mike on Thursday's episode, live from Highbury. Thank you so much for joining, you guys. It's been epic. A great show as usual. And don't forget to send the love to Super Kev. And as Super Kev will say, don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. At E Squaddies, at E.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
I love you guys. Where's the end stream button? I mean, I could stay here for another hour with you all, but I'm not going to do that because I've got to go do something. Anyway, I'll stop talking.